basically describes the American nightmare of the guy with a dead-end job, he impregnates the girlfriend, their lives are now out of control. And you listen to that, and you're like, wow, here's some British guy telling me about the world I have not yet entered, because I was not an adult when I first heard that song. But he gets it. Then I heard the song changes. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, these young people that you spit on as they try to change their world, they're immune to your consultations, they're quite aware of what they're going through. Changes. I'm like, damn, who could put that together and put that on the radio? This guy leapt out of the radio and talked right to me. And stupidly, for some reason, I never bought any of his albums when I was a teenager. That should have been my soundtrack when I turned 15. I just never did it. But as a 20-something, I started buying David Bowie's records and listening. I'm like, he's easily at the top of the pile. And it's just my mini pundit theory. When they finally write the real book on rock and roll, when the smoke clears and they finally get it right, at the top of the mountain with the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and all of those people, Jimi Hendrix, etc., will be Joy Division and David Bowie. And that's about as good as music gets on almost any of either party's records, especially Joy Division, because they didn't have a chance to make much music. And so I've been a fan of the guy since I was about 13. And so the other day I was in Newcastle, UK. It was raining, it was pretty tough, it's a tough town. And I stagger out of the back of my Bon Jovi mobile, my rented Def Leppard Express, and I'm sitting in the front lounge, happy that I can steal internet from the hotel across the street that we're parked in front of. I'm like, oh good, free internet. And I go to a website and I see Golden Years is the headline. I'm like, that's it, David Bowie's dead. And I scroll down and sure enough, the great man was gone. And I was clumsy with shock. Like if I had been standing, I would have fallen on the ground. I didn't take it well. And so road manager Ward, he and I have been circling the globe for almost a decade now, he comes from out of the bunk area. And I said, good morning, sir. David Bowie's dead. And he's like, great. And so he opens up his laptop. And he says, I have the last David Bowie record, Black Star, on my laptop. You want to hear it? And I had not heard it yet. I said, might as well. And so we listened to Black Star. And it was the first time I'd ever heard David Bowie sing to me as a dead person. And it was so strange to hear this amazing record. It is fantastic. And sad, because Mr. Bowie is addressing his issues. And he's very, very brave in the lyrics. And the music's amazing. And on the last song, I think it's called I Can't Give Everything Away, when the vocal fades out, you realize that is it. It's over. And I was almost in tears. I wanted to dive through the speakers and grab him and pull him back. Like, damn, man, don't leave me, because the world is so much better with you in it. And many years ago, I was on tour with my bandmates, 1897. I'm very old, you're very young. And we were playing at this mega festival in Belgium. And we had played at like 9 in the morning, because we're a band about that big. So we're playing in front of 4 drunks and the sound crew, and like there's mist on the grass. And like, we're playing in front of nobody because no one cares about our music, fair enough. And so we finished the show, and we now have like 12 hours to wander around the campus as all the big bands play, because we can't get our buses out, because all the bands are there. So I've got hours, and I'm just walking around, feeling bored, and David Bowie walks by me. He's the headliner, you know, he's the thing that everyone came to see. And he's got no one with him, and he's just walking by. He doesn't see me. And I am not the kind of person who will run up to you and say, hey, I'm Henry Rollins, it's a much better world now that you've shook my hand, because I really don't think that way. So I'm happy to let him walk by. I'm observing him like you'd observe a bald eagle in a tree. Like, there it is. Really, shh, don't make it fly away. It's so beautiful. Is it real? Yes, it's real. That's David Bowie walking by me. Damn, that's so badass. Look at him. And he stops for some reason. And he turns and looks at me. He says, ah, Rollins. And I go right at him with my hand outstretched. I said, ah, David. And I shook his hand. And he said, have you had lunch yet? And I said, no. He said, well, let's go have lunch. Because he was walking towards the catering tent. And I checked my schedule. Let me see. Made a few calls to see if I could chirp some time. I'm like, yeah, I can give you 7 minutes. And so we're walking towards the catering tent, and he starts the conversation. He said, you said something in an interview last month. I forget what magazine it was. But it was very, very interesting. And he proceeds to quote me for like half a page. And I'm going numb. I mean, this guy's quoting me. I'm like, I didn't say that. Dan, I said, you read my interview? I read all your interviews. You're a very interesting person. Now, last year in a German magazine, you said this. And he proceeds to quote me again. I'm like, okay, you should just shut up now. Because I need to run into traffic and get run over because my work here is done. And so we wander into the catering tent, which is full of Viking roadie men with braided beards and pierced eyebrows and forearms like bowling pins. These are men who can pick up the stage and move it. And they're drinking out of horns of mead. There's cows being turned over spits by women with huge bosom and blonde ponytails. And they all put down their tankard of grog because they see David Bowie like, arr, arr, arr. And everything stops inside the catering tent because the man has walked in. And everyone just kind of stands there like, damn man, David Bowie. And David sees all these people kind of staring at him. And instead of going, what are you looking at? He went, thank you, carry on. And everyone laughed and went back to their meal. He just really played it well. And so we got some food items and we sat down and we had this amazing conversation that went from everything from like surrealism to Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, Hubert Selby, just all kinds of people in these universes that we both kind of share. He's a friend of Lou Reed, I'm just a fan. So they use a kind of a Samson and Goliath kind of discussion. I'm the little guy, he's the big guy. Maybe that's the wrong analogy, but you get what I mean. Anyway, my bandmates had found out that I'm lunching with David Bowie, and they come running into the catering tent, pretending they like me. And Andrew, introduce us to your friend. I'm like, of course, David, this is, and I introduce the band, and he's very gracious. He shakes everyone's hand. And we carry on for another couple of minutes. This whole thing lasted all of 11 minutes. And he said, I have to go. And so we all, nice to meet you, sir. We shook hands, and he took off. And later that evening, we all got to watch him play from the side of the stage because his bodyguard, road manager guy, Big Charlie, allowed us to watch from the side of the stage. And to watch David Bowie handle 20,000+ people and to have them in the palm of his hand and to sing so beautifully for about 2 hours, it was one of the most substantial nights of my life. And just the fact that, I hung out with the band for a second was really cool. I'm not trying to brag and say I know cool people because I don't really know the guy, but, we had lunch, 4 bites of a sandwich. But his passing is, it's very hard to take. All of us obviously are going to die, but some people are so iconic, they have a permanence, and you just don't think of them ever toddling off the coil. Or if there is a higher power, like some god, and I'm not here to argue about that. I'm just saying if there is that, you'd think he, she, it, whatever, would give someone like David Bowie a few extra 100 years. Like, yeah, you're 69, you should have been dead. If I had my way, you'd have been dead like 24 years of age. But 69, you know what? He is really badass, isn't he? Isn't he great? He's great. Okay, we're going to give David another 200 years, just because, no one will mind, right? Because if he's like 150 years old, you're 150 years old, still making records. Yeah, thank you. And you wouldn't have any problem with it, but the man went away. Many years ago, when I was very, very young, I was born and raised in a place called Washington, D.C. It's where all the trouble starts in America. It's the capital of the United States. And in the 1960s, 1860s, whenever I was born, it was a very high contrast, racially intense bit of property. There were white neighborhoods, there were black neighborhoods, and the white people didn't go in the black neighborhoods. It was very screwed up along those lines. And I was a white boy going to a school that had mostly black kids. And white kids were not treated all that well because it's the 60s, and a lot of people had some crazy ideas about white, black, and whatever. And so I got called cracker, honky, Bama, which I never understood. And I got chased around the schoolyard. And I'm not a tough person. So if you want to run after me and scare the hell out of me, you won't have to work that hard to make me piss my pants in front of you, which I would do repeatedly. I would lose control of my bladder because somebody would be like, and I'm trying to hold on to my bladder, and I'll look down and like it's just urine's running out of me because I was so scared. I wasn't a tough guy. And so I'd go home, with my wet pants and my humiliation. I'd ask my mom, when you remember if you were spaz, did you have any friends who were like me, just a weirdo, and they would hyperventilate for like a year and a half, like, would you stop doing that? I can't. I would go home like, Mom, I know these people love me. And my mom delivered to me one of her first lies to me, but it was one of her best, and it was really well intended. I said, what do I do to make friends? She said, next time you go to school, when someone's teasing you, just smile through your tears, stick your hand out and say, hi, my name is Henry, let's be friends. I go, that won't work. She goes, sure it will. And of course it didn't. And so I became one of those kids on Ritalin, which they're giving to little spazzes like me by the handful in America. But mainly, I became one who liked to spend time alone in my room with music. Because my mom gave me like 4 Beatles records. Here, eat these and get back to me in a year. And so I'd listen to the same Beatles records over and over again. I had this many records on this tiny little record player. And I'd listen to whatever it was, Abbey Road or the soundtrack for Yellow Submarine. And those records were very kind to me because they sang about octopus's gardens, and sometimes they let the drummer sing and he had a funny voice, and they all looked friendly. And they were way friendlier than my dad, who's an amazing racist, a champion misogynist and an award-winning homophobe. And I'd see him on the weekends, and he would give me father-to-son wisdom, like, your mother is a spade lover, his word for black people. So you don't have to listen to what she says, but she's your mother, so I want you to respect her. And when you're a little kid, you're like, wait a minute, what's that called? You'll find out later, that's called an obtuse mixed message. But when you're a kid, you're trying to I don't know, and all I can think of is, I can't trust you. You are not my friend. Like, if I ever wanted to learn about girls 100 years from now, like how all that works, you are not the guy I can go to. I've got nobody. And I certainly didn't have my mom, because my mom was a very busy person. Both my parents, they were divorced very quickly after I was born. I think I'm the product of martinis. Because to the left of my mother is Joan Baez and a wall. And to the right of my father is a Fox News correspondent, Joseph Stalin, and another wall. And I think they say, hey, you look pretty hot. And they made me, and then they woke up and go, wait a minute, you're a conservative blowhard, you're a commie, and they're gone. And I'm the result. And so more and more, I found that my mom was busy trying to be a young woman enjoying her life. And she had boyfriends, as you do. And we had these very thin-walled apartments we lived in Washington. And at like 3 in the morning, I'd wake up because I'd hear my mom. She sounds like she's in a really good mood. But she sounds like she's been running. She sounds like she's doing calisthenics. Like she's like, I'm like, oh, Mom sounds really happy, but really tired. And you want to ask her the next day, were you doing something with that asshole in the living room who's wearing the same bathrobe as the other asshole was 6 weeks ago? But you just don't go there. And so more and more the music became my friend. And I made up alternate universes with these people. So when I would hear Dionne Warwick, or Gladys Knight, or Miriam Makeba, the great South African vocalist, they became my alt-moms. The Beatles became my alt-dads. And my clock radio and my record player became my go-to spots. And I never wanted to be anything in high school, like astronaut, sailor, soldier, fireman. No. What do you want to be when you grow up? Left alone, away from you. Not humiliated, not pushed around. I want to be in a room with a stack of records. I want Led Zeppelin 2 on a loop until I'm dead. That's all I need, is to be away from you in my room with some rock and roll. And so around age 17, my body chemically changed, I guess. I went completely insane. And I realized all my Ted Nugent, Van Halen, Aerosmith, Steve Miller, and Led Zeppelin records did no longer address my issues, because I was pissed. And I never understood what David Lee Roth ever said in any of his fine records. Running with the devil, what devil? I'm not running with anybody. No one will run with me. They just throw the ball at my head and say, get out of here, you pussy. And so music no longer was my pal, because I didn't care about love songs, I didn't care about fast cars, and all of that stuff. I didn't understand it's more than a feeling. What the hell are you talking about? I have that record, but I still don't know what it means. And so one day, a very good guy from my old neighborhood, Bert loaned me a record. He said, Henry, I'm a doctor. borrow this, play it 3 times, give it back in the morning. And it was the first Ramones album, which I laughed at when I saw it. I go, look at these 4 losers. That's a band? Are you kidding? They don't look like ELO. How could they play music? So I put the record on, and the first time I listened to it, I thought it was a joke. Like, that's funny. You guys are funny, right? And I thought it was funny until I couldn't stop playing it. I thought it was funny until I realized, finally, my life had a soundtrack. And that these 4 losers were actually 4 guys who didn't want to go to the party, but the 4-person party they were having outside of the party, I was okay to join, because I was a weirdo just like them. I gave the record back with great regret, and Bert loaned me the first Clash album, and that's when I got in touch with Professor Joe Strummer, and he instructed me to question authority, like night and day, in my sleep while awake, to ignore alien orders and to look at any authoritarian figure and go, maybe not, which was such a revolutionary idea for me, and I gave that record back with even greater regret. And then Bert loaned me the first Sex Pistols album, which damn near peeled the paint off my car and killed my lawn. Because I had never heard anyone that angry on a record besides me yelling at myself in my mind. And I realized I must be punk rock. So I started trying to get into that small Washington, D.C. punk rock scene and go to shows. And there was, and this is like 1879, there were about 45 of us. And you would have really liked us. We were cute. We were like, the guy who couldn't throw the ball straight. We had the gay people. We had the Rastafarian guy. We had this great communist guy who would always give you a flyer that you never read. And it was printed on both sides with letters that big. You're like, this is very important. And we were all raised to be polite. So like, thank you. You fold it. I'll get back to this in a never. And you put it in your ass pocket and spend the rest of the evening jumping around like a maniac. And it would become kind of the shape of your ass. And you fish it out of your jeans and put it somewhere overnight, and it would go into this like weird pulpy ass-shaped bowl the next day, like kind of like a tostada. And you got like frisbee it into the trash, and it had your body salts in it, so it would land like with a whack. And we never, but if he was good to go, no one said, "You commie bastard." We said, "I'm not going to read this, but thanks." And so our scene was cool like that. If there was a girl in a band, no one said, "That's a girl in a band." It was like,